Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our Back to Life podcast. This is season 2, episode 12, and I'm very excited for our guest today. His name is Bryan Anderson, and Bryan Anderson did 2 tours of duty in Iraq with the Army. And in October of 2005, Bryan was on a routine mission driving a Humvee and went over an explosive device and, as he says, was blown up. Lost both his legs and one arm. And you're really going to want to listen to this. Talk about an inspiring individual with just some great basic principles that we should all practice. He's obviously a veteran. He's a triple amputee. He's a spokesperson for some wonderful authorities. He's an author of a great book. He's an actor. We'll talk about some of the roles that you may have seen him in, certainly a warrior, and many other roles that Bryan Anderson engages in. I really enjoyed the conversation. Just such great nuggets in there for how do we create what we want in life? And more importantly, as Bryan talks about, how do you move through those really challenging, difficult times? And while we all have them, I think Bryan's is probably one of the most challenging that I've ever heard of. So sit back, take a listen, take some notes for yourself, and be sure to go ahead and like, comment, and share this for somebody else that may benefit as well. So let's get into our conversation with Bryan Anderson. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode, season 2, episode 12 of our Back to Life podcast. And I am very excited and very thankful for our guest today, Bryan Anderson. You'll find out a whole lot more about his story, and I'm pretty sure he's going to plant some seeds of inspiration for you in your own life. So, Bryan, thanks a lot for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and where are you coming to us from now?
Just outside of Chicago, a place called Rolling Meadows, Illinois.
Okay, cool. And that's home for now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, listen, Bryan, I did the intro for you that our listeners heard, but why don't you kind of take us on that event that happened to you back in October of 2005?
Well, yeah, I can do that. I'm going to go a little bit farther back.
Perfect.
I was young. I was working at American Airlines, and I decided to join the Army with a girlfriend, high school sweetheart.
Okay.
And the day we actually left for basic training was on September 11th, 2001.
Okay.
It was kind of a crazy day, and that kind of changed your mindset about everything you were about to go do, and kind of prepared us for the fact that, we're probably going to end up going somewhere at some point.
Right.
Because before that, it had been over 10 years since we'd been in a conflict. And I'll get to Fort Hood, go a couple of years, and then they tell us, all right, we're going to Iraq. And I ended up spending 2 years there. One for the initial invasion, a year there, and then came home for 8 months. And then we went back again for another year.
Yeah.
And right at the end of that, that's the October 23rd, 2005, was the day that I got blown up.
Yeah.
And I lost 3 limbs, my legs above the knees, my left hand, and kind of wake up in the hospital. Well, I was awake through the whole thing. So
Right.
I was aware of everything that had just happened, but then they put me in a induced coma for 7 days.
Right.
And it felt like 3 seconds from the time I closed my eyes on the battlefield to the time I opened them in the hospital. And my mom was there, and I was like, Mom. And I'm thinking, oh no, like, what are you doing here? Like, what idiot brought my mom to Iraq? Like, that is not cool.
Yeah.
And she does like the mom thing and gives me the look like, hey, you going to let me finish? And I'm like, whoa, yeah.
Right.
She's like, it's 7 days later and you're at Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so then not only was my mom there, but my twin brother, identical twin brother, my sister, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, like my whole family was there.
Sure.
And, I'm waking up as a triple amputee, like thinking, okay, I got all this support and that's great. And I'm so happy to see these guys.
Right.
But now what?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to be able to do? What kind of quality of life am I going to have? And thankfully, I was just, strong enough mentally to say, all right, well, you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know what's going to happen. Take a day at a time and see where it goes. You know, this is going to be a long process. So just start simple. I'm kind of like that firm believer in that acronym KISS.
Right.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And that's really what I just did. And I was thankful that I was, alive. And, one of the fears my parents had was, does even after something like this had happened, do you even still want to be alive?
Sure.
And she asked me that question. I looked at her and I'm like, are you crazy?
Your mom asked you that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, are you crazy? Of course I want to be alive.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, well, that's the first step. And so then that's what I just started doing.
Sure.
And I spent 13 months at Walter Reed. And I don't know, I had a pretty good attitude throughout all of it. I was lucky just to have that. But also having that attitude, made other people comfortable around me, made more people willing to help when I needed it. I think my attitude.
When the explosion first took place, and you said you were awake through all that, right? You were conscious.
Yes.
So you realized that you lost your limbs then.
Yes.
Right. And what was that? Was that just shock, or were you conscious? Were you having thoughts, conversations with different people?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm thinking it would have to just be like significant shock,
That, the shock I was going through is what protected me from feeling everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even right after it happened, like my legs were in the floorboard, my hand was in the passenger seat, and they pull me out and get me onto the sidewalk. And all I could see is like them looking at me like they'd just seen a ghost, all my friends.
Yeah.
And you can see the worry and fear on their faces. And so that's when I started like looking at myself, because I didn't know anything was wrong with me.
Right.
I just knew that I needed to be pulled out of the vehicle.
Right.
And that's when I started seeing things like my index fingertip and my left hand. And then I looked down, and I hadn't really said anything to anybody yet. And honestly, I'm not exactly the most proud of what I had said, but it worked in the moment for the guys that were there. And
I heard there was a little joke there. What was that? What was that joke?
It was like, do you ever think I'm going to get laid again?
Yeah. Well, sometimes humor's a powerful force, brother.
It is. And it got those guys right back on track to do what they needed to do. They, realized that I was still there.
Right.
And then I told myself, like, all right, this is bad, but I still never felt like I was going to die. And I felt that if you were in that situation and you were, that you'd have some sort of inkling, a notion or feeling that you would, but I never did. At the same time, I wasn't trying to take any chances either. So I told myself, like, all right, stay awake, talk to these guys. And it hurt to breathe. It was hard to breathe.
Right.
So I told myself, make those muscles. Little air is better than no air. And so I just.
Wow.
Yeah. And
the tremendous power of the narrative that we have in our head. I mean, you use that in a life or death situation, right? So that little voice that we can kind of make happen up there.
Yeah.
Is something that was around for you before the accident, before?
I guess. Yeah. Wow. I mean, there's always been a voice in my head telling me right and wrong. And you probably shouldn't do that. Or.
Right. Oh yeah. The voice goes, sometimes
not like a crazy voices or anything.
Sometimes there's 2 or 3 of them up there. Right. Oh shit. Yeah. Then you got to pick which one to listen to.
Right.
Oh man. So then you get to Walter Reed, you're in that coma for 7 days, you get out, everybody's there. And now that voice, right, that power of the narrative, in other words, you can't really control what happens to you. It's how you're going to deal with it, how you're going to respond to it.
Exactly.
Which I think is just such a powerful principle for all of us. Right. I mean, I had that accident years ago. Me and my buddy got electrocuted. We both died. I was out for like 8 or 10 minutes. He died, never came back. Same thing. I went to the different kind of trauma than you, but I'm in the hospital for 10 days. Right. And then I get out and he's buried already. And I'm like, what do we do now? Unlike you, I struggled a little bit to say, do I even want to be here? Because I had so much blame about what happened to him, So did you ever have, exactly. Right. Did you ever, and maybe yes, maybe no, but did you have those dark times? You know, I got to think there must have been periods where you were just, yeah or no?
Not really. Maybe twice, but it all happened within a 2-week period. It was about 4 or 5 months after the explosion. I was now living in a hotel on Walter Reed campus. So I was a block away from the hospital.
Right.
And I hit a depression. You know, I looked down. I had a moment of weakness where I was feeling sorry for myself and, oh my gosh, I'm half a person.
Yeah.
You know, how are girls going to look at me? How are other people going to look at me?
Right.
And I was just unsure about where things were going to go. And I had forgot, you know, what fun was. I forgot what life was all about. And, you know, the medications I was on with the painkillers and all that, you know, that was making me emotional and whatnot. And there was, you know, a few times that I needed to realize that I can't be doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when you hit that moment of depression, like so many of us have, and probably some of the people listening right now, what was your kind of strategy to get out of that? Number one, to recognize it, I guess, right? The awareness of, holy shit, this is not the thinking that I want. And then what's your strategy that you would offer to people when they get in that rut or that depression? What should they do?
Well, I'm not saying what I did was the most healthiest, but in that spirit of it, I would, before I even tell you what I did or where I went, I would say, you know, sometimes you just need to remove yourself from the situation.
Sure.
Go remember what life was about,
right.
and go have some fun.
Right.
For me, I was seeing all the soldiers that were coming through Walter Reed. There were so many, that in itself was depressing.
Yeah.
And then at that moment, it had been 16 months since I had experienced any kind of real life, because for the year before that, I was at war.
Right.
And so I just realized to myself, like, I need to get out of here. I need to remove myself from the situation. I need to go have some fun. And my mom looked at me and she goes, okay, what do you want to do? And I looked at her and I was like, well, my best friend Sarah is in Vegas. Let's go to Vegas.
That's a good place to have some fun, right?
And an hour later, we were on a plane to Vegas.
Yeah, you didn't go to Disneyland, did you?
No. And so I spent 3 days down there.
Yeah.
And I really just had fun. Right. And I focused on the things that were in front of me.
Right.
Instead of what had happened or dwelled on things. And when I did that, I was able to have fun. And then when I was having fun, it was way easier to not think about this or that. And it really just made me have a love for life again. And that gave me the strength to want to go and get better.
Right. Yeah, that's so powerful, I think, right? Fun and joy. I think it's mostly about joy. Let's just go do things, be with people that bring us that internal sense of joy. And because everybody says, you know, I want to be happy. And I'm like, don't be joyful. Happiness is what people see, right? Joy is what we as an individual experience. So that's cool. But when people are down, like you said, just go do things or be with people that bring you joy, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. So then after Vegas, you came back and then, you know, I know, you know, from looking at your website and kind of talking with you a little bit before this, you connected with Gary Sinise, who does some wonderful work for all of our men and women who have served. How did that happen?
Well, Gary's an amazing man. He really is. Probably one of the greatest people I know. And I fell into him, literally fell into him.
Physically.
Physically. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
He came to visit Walter Reed. And, you know, there were peer visitors that would come in all the time. And I always felt like they were just doing it to get pictures with soldiers and say I was here and all that.
Yeah.
And I was practicing walking on prosthetic legs.
Right.
And he walked in, and there were 30 other people that walked in with him. And I'm just like, oh, great, another peer visitor.
Yeah,
and I just kept doing my thing. And I'm walking around the clinic. And as I come back by the entryway again, I'm now starting to like push through, like, excuse me, I'm trying to get through. I got to make my circle.
Yeah.
And I tripped over somebody's foot. It wasn't Gary's, but when I fell forward, I literally fell into him.
Oh, man.
And he stood strong, held me up. I put my hands up and looked up, and I'm like, holy crap, Gary Sinise.
Yeah, right.
He looks at me and goes,
Lieutenant Dan, right? Lieutenant Dan.
That is exactly what he said. And I was just like, nope, I'll never be Lieutenant Dan. You will always be Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, wow.
And we sat there for like 10 minutes just talking, and I could clearly tell he was genuine and truly cared about, what he was saying about us.
Yeah.
The advice he gave, it was powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a wonderful dude. I had the chance to meet John Ondrasek years ago and have a friendship with him. He's the guy that sings Five for Fighting. I don't know if you've ever met him, but he does a lot of work with Gary as well. And same thing. He said, man, what a beautiful soul that guy is,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I haven't met him yet, but I'm sure one day.
Yeah. Yeah. Perhaps he's a good guy too. Really good guy. So then you wrote a book, No Turning Back, right? Tell us about that process and what's in the book if folks might want to grab that.
Well, so for 5 years after I got blown up, people kept saying, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book.
Sure.
And I just kept saying, no. Like, I got blown up just like 1,000 other guys. What makes my story any different than theirs? And I don't just want to be a book on the shelf.
Right.
Well, then after 5 years, so there's some backstory here. And even with Gary, like, after that, I didn't see him for a while. But when I left Walter Reed, I was very lucky. Esquire magazine wanted to do a story on a soldier, and they chose me to do it on.
Right.
And the story came out so great that they decided to put me on the cover.
Right.
And so when I leave Walter Reed, all of a sudden now I'm on the cover of Esquire magazine.
Yeah.
And
that's great photo, great story. I did take a look at it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd encourage everybody out there, go Google that and take a look. It's pretty cool.
But that opened a ton of doors for me. And I started working, acting, doing stunts, being a spokesperson for a couple companies and veterans organizations and things like that. And so for 5 years after, I had been doing that.
Yeah.
And so by the time somebody else said, hey, you should really write a book, because now I've been speaking, I've been helping people, I've been having these incredible experiences and life realizations that I was like, okay, maybe I do have something to say now. And maybe I could stand out from just getting blown up, because I didn't really know how to make a book about just getting blown up.
Right. Yeah.
And so No Turning Back is kind of an inspirational, tough love memoir, kind of. It's not like many books out there. The first chapter is me getting blown up. I mean, it literally starts with the first sentence, I believe, is, on the day I got blown up, it was hot as hell.
Yeah.
And it just goes from there. And then the second chapter was like rehab. But then the rest of the book is before, after, childhood. It just bounces back and forth. And it has to do with some of the challenges that I was going through and stories I would remember that helped me get through those challenges. But it's definitely not like a victim mentality kind of book. This is like, kind of like, hey, if you want to be happy, it's up to you to do it.
Yeah.
And you have to put in the work and things like that. So it's done pretty well.
Yeah, that's very well said, right? The great messages. And when people then look at you and what you experienced and how you thrived through it. I mean, you're awarded the Purple Heart. As you said, you do tremendous speaking. You've written the book and you've done a bunch of acting, right? How did that come about? Where would people have seen you as an actor?
Esquire magazine kind of opened that door, because I said I wanted to be a stuntman and an actor.
Right.
Or I could be the dead guy on CSI New York, laying on the table, like all blown up.
Yeah.
But it went even greater than that. And to be honest, the first thing I ever did was the Dark Knight. Well, I take that back. There was an HBO documentary, so that was more like an interview kind of type thing.
Right.
That was the first. But then, the stunt coordinator from the Dark Knight saw the Esquire thing and said, "Oh, we're filming in Chicago. Come on down." And so I got to work on that movie a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was just traffic. You don't see me.
Yeah.
But that was my first experience. And then the next movie was.
And did you like that?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
such an incredible production of chaos.
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it, right?
It's organized chaos. It really is.
Yeah.
But there's so many people involved
right.
in making this happen. I just thought that was, the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Heath Ledger and watch him play the Joker. And it was just like, oh, and seeing it with your own eyes was just incredible. It made me want to do that more.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the next thing was I did the movie called The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke and Marissa Tomei.
Yep.
And that was another kind of stunt thing where I pull off my prosthetic leg and I give it to Mickey Rourke so he could hit somebody with it.
Right.
And then that was pretty much the start. But then the writers from CSI New York called and said, "Hey, we'd like you to play a murder suspect, Navy SEAL, in one of the CSI New York episodes." Mm-hmm. And I actually got to act across or with Gary. Yeah. And that was such an amazing, incredible experience.
I can't even imagine how cool that must have been,
It was fantastic. And then I did an episode of Hawaii Five-0. And then I did the movie American Sniper, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was a stunt double on a Netflix movie called The Week Of with Adam Sandler and Chris Rock and Steve Buscemi. And that was the first project that I got to do from start to finish. So I was there with them every day, every other day, like a month and a half, 2 months with these guys. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So you're going to do more? Are you doing more of it?
Not at the moment. I moved out of LA and I figured, I was known enough that people would call me and do things, and I got rid of my agent.
Right.
I don't know. I'm going to do more eventually.
I think you will.
The pandemic, I was traveling so much by the time the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for 15 years now. I was worn out.
And what were you doing? Mostly giving keynotes,
inspirational keynotes, charity events. I was in a different city every other week.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Don't get me wrong.
Right. You just needed a breather, right? Reset.
And I wanted to be around my family. My twin brother just had a baby.
Oh, cool.
And so this was kind of refreshing for me. I'm now wanting to get out and do things again, although I do not want it to get as busy as I was before, because that takes a toll, and I'm getting older now. Like you said, fighting the old age.
Yeah. How old are you now?
I'm 40 now. But as soon as I turned 40, my eyes started going, and I had great eyesight. And I'm like, no, I'm fighting getting glasses, dude.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. I got glasses all over the house and in the cars and everywhere, man. That's all right. That's all right. So what lessons, as we kind of wrap up? Well, first of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for who you are and how you show up in the world and support people and plant seeds of inspiration. As you start to ramp up and get back into it, and certainly I'm sure people would benefit from hearing a keynote, where could people go find you if they want to find out about the book, or if they want to talk to you about booking a gig or something like that?
I have a website. It's called andersonactive.com. And through there, you can, check out the book. The book's on Amazon, though, and in some Barnes and Nobles. My neighbors were actually just in the Miami airport and sent a picture of my book on the shelf at the Miami airport.
Nice, man.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It came out 11 years or 10 years ago. I can't believe it's still there.
Hey, the stories and lessons are timeless, man. You know that.
Right. But yeah, Anderson Active. You can get a hold of me through there.
Great.
and stuff like that.
That sounds good. That sounds good. What's up for the New Year's here? Because you and I are recording this 2 days before New Year's.
I have a wedding to go to.
Oh, really? We're local?
Actually, on New Year's Eve. It's about an hour north of me.
All right.
Rockford.
That'd be cool. Nice wedding on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. It's from one of the guys I play wheelchair rugby now. Just started this year. It's
wheelchair
like
rugby.
Yeah, you ran into each other. It's just
man, yeah. My buddy Stu, who was with me when I had my accident, he passed away about 5 years ago, but he played rugby up until the 60s. Yeah, he loved it. Yeah. So wheelchair rugby, is that inside, outside, both?
It's inside. It's played on a basketball court.
Oh, okay.
And you use the volleyball. You can pass the volleyball between each other, and
right.
There's a lot of rules.
You got a souped up wheelchair or what?
Oh, they're beefed up. They're meant to be rammed into each other.
Oh my gosh. I gotta check that out.
There's a lot of rules, a lot of little things, but the general gist is take the volleyball, get it to the end zone. That's like the baseline on the basketball court.
That's it. All comes back to that one goal, right?
Right.
Oh man, that's amazing. So you had a trauma, unlike what most people would experience. And, you came back, you had the support of your family and all. You have any faith in something bigger, God, spirit, consciousness? Does that play into anything?
I believe in something. I don't know what I believe. I think there's a God, or I believe in a God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily believe in all the religion and all the different books. And I mean, everybody thinks they're right about what they think. And
yes,
I've kind of just formulated my own opinions about things, but
but you believe there's a higher power? Yeah. And have you tapped into that on your journey? Have you ever felt like, okay, I got some support here that maybe I can't even explain and it feels good?
No, not exactly. I feel like in those moments, it was my family and my friends that I've ended up leaning on more.
Yeah.
And then inner strength, being like, just telling myself, you're stronger than this, And at the same time, people come up to me all the time and say, aren't you so glad God saved your life? And I kind of just look at them and throw them a curveball, being like, well, he didn't save my life. He just made me the way I was meant to be. My life wasn't actually in danger.
Wow.
And so it just kind of gives them a different way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
And I tend to think, that's what I got.
Yeah. I think that the majority of us that go through challenges in life, most of us wouldn't trade them, People would say to me all the time, do you wish that accident never happened? And I say, I wish my friend didn't die.
Right.
You married with 3 little kids. But I'm like, no, man, because that, moving through that tough time and, I was a little different than you. There was a couple moments, one in particular where I was pretty close to taking my own life. And no, but that's what makes us who we are, So that's pretty powerful that you say, God didn't necessarily save your life. He or she, right? Just, who you are now, moved you to who you are now, man. So if you're having, coffee, a beer, glass of wine, bacon and eggs with somebody, right? Let's say you're together with somebody and you're never going to see them again. You're just going to go your separate ways. And they say to you, hey, Bryan, listen, as I go off into life, what are 2 or 3 things that I should really hold on to and I should really value as a truth? Where I go out and create what I want in my life and I move through, the crappy times, the times of struggle. What would you offer to them?
I would say trust yourself, 1. 2, don't expect that anything's going to be given to you. Or, if you want things, you have to go out and get them yourselves. And the last thing would be your mind could be your greatest tool, or it could be your greatest adversary. Because if you think you're not going to do something, guess what? You're not going to do it.
Right.
But if you choose to look at things in a certain way, your mind can be a very powerful thing that could help you through things. So don't let your mind stop you from doing things that you want to do just because you think you can't.
Right. Yeah. Stay on that positive vision of seeing yourself do it. Right.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Right on. Well, listen, I'm glad that we got connected through our friend, and you inspire me, brother. So, perhaps our paths will cross in person someday. I would love that.
That'd be
Until
great.
then, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do in supporting people on this journey of life. Really appreciate it, Bryan.
Yeah, no problem. Where are you out of?
I'm just outside of Philadelphia.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm in Pennsylvania a lot. That could happen.
Oh, I would love it, man. I would love it. All right. So listen, wishing you all the best as you head off into your new year. And everybody else that's out there listening, wishing you all the best always in your year ahead. And you might want to go back and listen to what Bryan just said at the end of our conversation again, right? What was it? Trust yourself, take action. You got to make it happen and understand the power of your mind and choose wisely the thoughts you're putting in there.
Correct.
So until next time, everybody, take care. Bryan, wish you all the best, brother.
Happy New Year, guys.
Take care. Thanks a lot for listening to that episode with Bryan Anderson. What an inspiring man for sure. And I'm sure you took some notes, and in all likelihood, you heard some things that you can begin applying to your own life. For me, the takeaways was the importance of your support, your family and friends, when you're going through a difficult time. I also liked how Bryan spoke about when he was in a bit of a funk, just going to have some fun and getting back to what brings you joy in life. And then I think at the end, he just touched on 3 basic principles that have served him well and that will serve all of us well. And it's number 1, to trust yourself. It's number 2, to be sure to take action to make these things happen that you want to create in your life, the good times and moving through the difficult times. And then the third one is just to understand the power of your mind. We can choose to have thoughts that are going to move us away from what we want. They're going to keep us stuck, or we can hold more useful thoughts about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, who we're going to do it with, and move through that. So thanks again for listening. Wish you all the best, and be sure to like and comment and share this podcast out there to your family and your friends and your social network. So until next time, wishing you all the best. Peace.